All right, in Chapter 1, we're going to study data analysis just for this week. And whenever we start data analysis, first thing we have to do is collect data before we can analyze it, right? Makes sense, right? Otherwise you analyze nothing, and that, while easy to analyze nothing, you don't get much from the results. There's not much you can infer from it. So we have to start somewhere. In the first place is, how do we gather the data, which would be a survey or a poll or something. So we're going to talk about surveys and sampling methods today. First, we need some definitions. First one, population. It's an entire group. Obviously, the largest population to which we could refer would be the population of this planet, right? A couple billion people. Or 3, 4 billion. I don't know what it's at now. Heck, China's got 1 billion alone, so it's got to be a few more past that. Could be just the United States when we refer to a population. Could be something as small as the student body in the school. Could be an entire population. A sample is merely a part of that population. So our classroom, it's part of the school population, correct? It's part of the population of the state of Ohio, part of the population of the state of the earth, United States of America. However, this classroom is not part of the population of, I don't know, the state of Florida, Florida's population. So one important thing when you're looking at a sample, and one way you can skew a sample, you have to make sure when you're referring to the sample, the people in it, all of them, actually have membership in the population. Oops. That's important. Membership in the population. Otherwise, should you be talking to them? No. Now, these are in your books. This is in your book. Do not start frantically writing it down. We're just going to talk about it. It's on the bottom of page 6. Random sampling. On the left are the different methods. There's going to be 4. There are 4 major ones. And in the middle, they talk about how it would work. And on the far right, there's an example of each. The first one is random sampling, which is, in my opinion, probably the best way to get a true result. I mean, what are you looking at when you're collecting any of this data? What you want to do is you want to take a small group, get their opinion, because if you have that small group, what you should be able to say is, well, the small group thinks this, the sample, that means in the same proportion or the same percentages, people in the large group should think the same things. Before a presidential campaign, have you ever watched the news? They say, 50-some% of the population supports this candidate and this, that. What they're doing is they're getting a very small group of people, relatively speaking to the size of the population of the United States, and they're saying, who do you support and why? And then that way they can project and say, we think this person's going to win because our sample group likes this person for so many, and they can predict things to happen. And that's the whole reason we do data analysis, so that we can predict things. Now, who uses them? Well, who uses data analysis? Well, political campaigns for sure. Companies use data analysis. What kind of companies? Companies that want to sell you things, which would be a lot of different kinds of companies, right? Because they want to predict what will be popular with what age group. They can target their marketing and all those kinds of things. So anyway, random sampling, if you want a true example of what the population thinks. Random sampling is hard, though, in some cases. Each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. And here's the caveat, the thing we have to note. Anytime we're doing any kind of sampling, a person can only be chosen once. Only chosen once. If you get chosen more than once, it invalidates the entire survey. because then your opinion is twice as important as everybody else. And you know what they say about opinions, right? Opinions are like bottoms. Everybody's got them, and they all stink. Oh, come on. That was a little funny. Rough crowd. All right. For an example of random sampling, you take all the names, place them in a hat, and you pull something out. Pull a name out of a hat. Ever seen that happen before? That's a random example of random sampling. A telephone survey. There are lots of companies and different things like political campaigns who do random sampling. They have a computer that generates lists of telephone numbers, and they just call them. The problem with that is they've had to refine these lists because now a lot of the phone numbers are cell phones, so a person could get called twice, which would invalidate the survey. So they try and generate just landlines like home phones and then or cell phones. They'll use two different things. Because I have a cell phone and I have a home phone. I could get, theoretically speaking, I could be called on both of them, right? Hmm? Oh, okay. Well, it's a public number, you know. Okay. Cluster sampling. A cluster sample is when people are selected randomly from the population or a group of people, and surveyed in the group, in the cluster. So what might happen is a number of classrooms in a school are selected at random. All students who have classes in those rooms during the first period of the day are surveyed. Now, why couldn't they do it during different periods of the day? Well, because then a student might be chosen more than once. Let's say they were going to survey students in this school as to their favorite cola beverage, whether Pepsi or Coke or RC or whatever. And they might go to this classroom, and they might pick an English class and maybe AFJROTC and welding and something else, another lab, and all during the same period, so those kids could not move to an academic class and be used again. During the same period, they would just interview everybody in that class because the class is a group. When you see cluster, think group. That's what a cluster is. Think group because they're surveyed in groups. Convenience sampling. Members of a population are selected because they are readily available and all are surveyed. This would be like doing the same cola survey, but they stand at the front of the building when everybody's getting off their bus and survey all the students coming, because the students are right there coming in the building, right? What's the problem with that? Well, not everybody rides the bus, right? The drivers who come in the back door couldn't even be included. So does everybody have an equal chance? No. Yes, ma'am.
Is that like when they call you on the phone and want to do something?
No, that would be an example of random. Yeah, anytime they do, usually a phone survey would be a random sample because they're just generating that number from a list. A computer does it and just picks it randomly. So convenient sampling is they're looking for people in just in a certain place and they're taking them because it's convenient. All students in a bookstore before the school opens are surveyed. Systematic sampling is, to me, kind of like a convenient sampling with some kind of method or system on how they're going to pick people. Members of a population that have been organized in some way are selected according to a pattern. So to me, it's convenience with a pattern. So it makes it a little better than convenience, but still not random. Students in your school pass through the cafeteria line during one day. Every 10th person is surveyed. So they're only taking people who are in the cafeteria. Well, maybe not everybody eats at the same time. But then they're only going to choose every 10th person. So that way it is somewhat random. But this is to me just a little better than convenience. It's just convenience with a system or a pattern. That's what systematic is. All right, what can we do with this? Well, you're going to be asked some questions given a situation. And you're going to be asked to analyze what's going on. A publisher wants to know which type of books are most popular with high school students. Listed are 3 ideas for collecting data. I'm glad they didn't list which kind of books are popular with high school males, and I would have said, well, the ones with all the pictures. Right, so they don't have to read. Identify the sampling method represented by each. What kind? Would they dial phone numbers? This is supposed to say at, not are random. At random across your country and ask to speak to a teenager. What kind would that be? Well, of your 4 kinds, what does that sound the most like? Random, cluster, convenience, or systematic? Does everybody have a telephone? Just about. Does everybody have an equal chance then? So that would be random, right? This is random. Anytime you involve a phone, it's usually random because it's just given that most people have a phone now. The next one. Choose 20 high schools at random across the country and survey each student in the school. What would that be? Well, does everybody have an equal chance? No, not really. They're only choosing 20 schools. What do you think it would be? Now, when I look at this, what I see groups there. They're picking 20 high schools and surveying the whole group in that school. Cluster, right? That's cluster. And then last one, give questionnaires one afternoon to all high school students visiting the White House on class trips to Washington, D.C. Do you think it's convenience? I do. I've had now. The thing with data analysis is you could make an argument, right? Does anybody think that could be systematic? Because they're like, okay, good. I've had students say, well, that's almost like systematic, and I would say it's almost. If they would take this and say they're going to survey every 15th kid who walks through the door on the class trip, then it would be systematic. But yes, right now this is a convenience because they're just picking students coming on a class trip to the White House. Right. Sometimes survey findings are not accurate because they do not truly represent are not truly representative, are not, a lot of typos in this, are not truly representative of the entire population. This is called bias. Bias results are bad and yet are used all the time to try and sway your opinion. Why might this happen? Why might we get, or how might we get biased results? Why might this happen? How might we get biased results? Well, they might use an inappropriate sampling method for what they're doing. Meaning that their results are skewed intentionally. Let's say I wanted to put out a survey about who's going to be elected in the 2008 presidential election, and I took a cluster sample of students in English during fourth period. Is that going to be, and I would say, okay, during the next presidential election in the United States, we're going to do this. Would that be accurate, or would those results be biased? Well, they would be biased. I got a bunch of teenagers who may not care. And they might pick, I don't know, Matt Parker or Trey, Matt, who are the guys who did South Park? They might say them. Who is it, Trey Parker and, yeah, so, and very popular. They might pick somebody else. So that, an inappropriate sampling method might result in biased results. What else? Okay, I'm sure nobody in here has ever done this before, but have you ever not told the truth? Right, I know some people do that. Right, I know it doesn't happen in here. Right, bad people. They lie, right? That can happen on a survey, correct? You could lie. Or exaggerate. Let's say I did a survey to find out how much time you spent working on your homework every night. You didn't want to make me feel bad, which normally you don't care, but let's say everybody in the class felt especially kind that day. They didn't want to make you feel bad. Oh, we do at least a half hour every night. So you exaggerate. Lie or exaggerate your response. Somebody might even say, I don't know, nobody's sitting in this class. So I do my homework every night. And there's one other one. Anybody? And I forget what it is right now because I haven't taught this lesson before. I have, but it's been a long time. Oh, yeah. I think that's it. And the third one, Brittany, you are right on the money. No response. People don't answer. You may not answer their phone, so you may not get a true representation of the entire population. No response on that. You usually just hang up on them. Yeah, my wife's not. My wife does. He's busy and don't call back. What are you gonna do? A cereal manufacturer wants to identify the most popular type of breakfast food. Okay, let's just take a wild guess. What do you suppose the cereal manufacturer wants to hear is the most popular type of breakfast food? Well, first of all, cereal, right? Preferably the kind of cereal they make. But yes, most likely cereal. They don't want to hear pancakes or eggs or any of that stuff. The manufacturer decides to include a questionnaire in every 10th box of cereal it packages. What method of sampling does this represent? No, systematic. Very good. Now, we'll hold that thought for a minute. This is systematic because it's going to be every 10th box. That's how I represent that as a system. Explain whether or not the results are likely to be biased. Are they? Yes. Why? Does everybody eat cereal? No. So does everybody in the population likely to be included? No. So there are kinds of questions like this on your homework tonight. When they ask for you to explain why or why not, just a couple words. Not everybody eats cereal. That would be enough for this one. Not everybody. I don't eat cereal. What kind? Sugar Pops. Honeycombs. Oh, so you have like a smorgasbord every morning? You just set all those boxes out? Oh, okay. Yeah, it makes it. Okay, the circle graph shows the results of a survey of 300 Americans asked to name their favorite spectator sport. Does anybody see a problem with this one? I did. As soon as I got this example, I noticed a glaring problem. Was the most popular one listed? Basketball. What should it be? Football. Football is the most popular sport in the United States, period. It's not even close. And there's, look, 5% of the people pick soccer? Give me a break. But football is the most popular sport. ESPN puts the draft on for 2 full days. These are guys talking about football players being selected by pro teams. There's no sport actually going on. They're just talking. And yet it gets a higher rating than any live basketball, pro baseball, college football, anything else on ESPN other than a pro football game. That's how popular professional football is. ESPN stopped broadcasting the National Hockey League because they have to pay. I know. Yeah, other. Yeah, I guess. Tennis, 4%. Golf should be higher too. And NASCAR should probably be up. NASCAR, the left turn only circuit, should be up there. Billy Joe Gunrack and the boys. that's all they're worldwide. In every other country but this one, yes. That's what they call football everywhere else but here. Football. But anyway, they got rid of, ESPN got rid of hockey league games because they can put a show on about fantasy football. Fantasy football, fantasy football is something where guys draft players, and the players, when they perform on Sunday, get points for doing certain things in their stats. Yeah, exactly, they're tracking stats. So there's a television show where they just talk about fantasy football to two guys, and it gets a higher rating than any hockey game. That's how popular professional football. Yeah, fantasy geeks. You can bet on it. Oh my gosh. Oh really? That doesn't surprise me. All right. How many of those surveyed chose baseball as their favorite sport? Well, how many chose baseball, percentage-wise? 28%. How many people were surveyed? 300. So how many people? How would I find that? Add, subtract, No. Nope. How do you find a certain number of another when you know a percentage? Multiply, yeah. Times 0.28. Why 0.28? That's 28. You're right. That's 20% as a decimal. 84. So about 84 people chose baseball as their favorite sport. If the survey was unbiased, so I'm telling you that it is. If it's unbiased, how many of 5,000 Americans might be expected to choose soccer as their favorite sport? Well, how many chose soccer? 5%. How many people? 5,000, right, in the new one. So, I would multiply again, right? 5,000 times 5% or 0.05. 250 people. Why would that be important? Does this have any impact on your life? Oh, it doesn't? It most certainly does. That's the reason why. Have you ever heard of the Nielsen Ratings? That is a sampling. How television shows are rated. The more popular the television show, what? The more money people are willing to pay to advertise on that show. Why? Because they want to target people my age. Especially young males. Young men. Younger. Adult men. Why? Because how do they get the ratings? They have a sample. They take a sample of people and ask them to rate and tell them how often they watch the TV show. And that's how they get a percentage of people, the rating. It's just a random sample. And then they can say, well, if this many people of our survey group watched it, then we can project it when you look at the hundreds of millions of people that live in the United States and watch TV. This many people will see your television show. So therefore, we can charge this much for advertising for Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Nike or whatever. Or Apple. Exactly, because more people watch worldwide. That is the most watched television show in the world. Is the Super Bowl. That's why they can charge millions of dollars for 30 seconds. 8 and 9, 1 to 18. When they ask you why or why not something is biased, all you gotta do is a couple word answer.